state your question. So if the kids are presented with a question, they have to make the question a statement, restate it, then you have to answer that question, then you have to explain the question. The citation, they have to go back in the reading and show you where they got the information from, and then at the end it's S, so they summarize it. So it helps them to form a paragraph, essentially. So
to me, that would really work.
It does. And whenever I started teaching, it was just race, and then in the past couple of years, they added the S. So the kids are like, when did the S come? Like the kid. So I'm like, wow. So it's been fun, especially for the older kids, because they only ever had race. But yeah, it helps them write a paragraph instead of just one sentence.
Okay. That's good.
Thank you.
All right. So you mentioned the diagnostic testing to establish instructional levels, and then the benchmark testing. Which, like for the middle school, what diagnostic testing?
We're gonna do across the board. All the schools are doing Acadience and Easy CBM.
Okay.
Acadience is ELA, yes, and Easy CBM is math. And then before they have their iReady programs, and we have a program called Bottle that it makes learning ELA and math more fun. They have characters and whatnot, so they use that. We use that to track their growth, and then the benchmark tests give us a better idea of where they're at, I guess. And that's the ones I think that are turned into the state officially.
Yes, the Easy CBM and the Acadians was on our original alternate framework.
Right. All right. Y'all, any other questions? Thank you for an excellent report. We appreciate it. All right. So next up is finance report. So Ms. Berthelot, you're on.
Hi, thanks, ma'am. First of all, I want to thank you guys for last month approving the budget. I did submit it timely, and it felt good. So everything seems to be fine. The budget was pretty straightforward. I don't know how much detail JJ went into, but I was very appreciative of him giving my report as well last month. So thank y'all. For the month of July, brand new school year, right? My report is much more brief than I guess sometimes, but if you look at the expenditures and the revenues for July, we were in the hole a little bit. Every July when we stop receiving reimbursements and the funding is just the MFP dollars, it starts off a little, I guess, shaky looking, if you will, but if you compare last year to this year, it's a little better than we were at that point. But that big insurance payment always just catches my eye because that's not a reimbursable expense, obviously, but I've already started running the numbers for this month, and we're catching up and looking good, looking like we have for the months previous. I know when I first started, JJ enjoyed that 3-year comparison, and we're still on an uptrend as far as what our bottom line looks like, at the end of every month. So that's good. Our MFP for July, we did get adjusted. We are I'm not exactly sure of the number of students at this very point, but around the same, 101, 100. So the MFP dollars fluctuate by a couple of thousand. For that, I did yesterday. So a couple of months ago, I was invited to the inaugural Business Manager Academy that the LDOE is putting on, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but what she mentioned was that there were so many new people that it was something that the DOE decided they needed. And I will tell you, I attended yesterday for the second day, and I'm still learning a whole heck of a lot, and it's very beneficial. And I'm happy to be a part of the inaugural. And weirdly enough, I think I did say this to y'all, I'm actually one of the oldest tenured business managers with only 2 years of experience. So So there's a lot of new faces, but that's very enjoyable. Just of note, a couple things. Obviously, I submitted the budget at the end of July. The school lunch application was approved. That's something that always happens at this time of year. It's basically just saying that I'm able to claim the lunch reimbursement every year. So that went off without a hitch. AFR is the biggie. That's coming up. The portal's going to open next week. And I've been getting my annual financial report data ready to submit, hopefully timely. It's due on September 30th. I should have it in before that. Super app amendment. I just need a couple of more approvals to start claiming reimbursements so I can catch up on those bottom lines, and hopefully don't have negatives in the next few months. But so yeah, that's really all I have. If you guys have any questions specifically, I'd be happy to answer them. But I thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate so much what you do.
Thank you. And just to piggyback off of it's in this class that I went to, the charter, I don't want to say myth, but the negativity associated with those words, I don't feel it as much as like maybe you might have used to, like especially in the finance, charters are somewhat separate and different, but they don't make you feel separate and different. You're really a part of the whole, and of course there are differences still. So how many charters do it this way? But it's very inclusive. It doesn't feel separate or alienation, I guess, if you will. And it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling, and I to garner a little respect amongst my colleagues as well. So so yeah, very, very interesting.
You'll be the model student, I'm sure.
I'm working on it.
No doubt.
We just still have a few people in the legislature
Right,
who
right.
won't let it go.
I don't know if that's a uniform statement, but in the DOE it feels very comfortable to be something of an anomaly, I guess. So
Well, it wasn't that long ago that many people were against the charters. They looked at it as taking away from the public.
right,
Monetarily more than anything
Monetarily.
else.
right.
And especially in areas where they were expanding, you know, like in New Orleans, you know, on
Right.
there's
They have a
more
whole
charters
charter
than
district.
anything
Yes.
else, you know, and people, and that's probably why the leading opponent is from New Orleans.
Yeah, and especially in New Orleans, you have a lot of people, they trace everything back to Katrina. You know, everything started happening after Katrina, new charter schools, but they forget, you know, the schools were in decline way before Katrina.
Way before.
So it was inevitable that something had to be done, and if Katrina hadn't hit, you know, the charter schools or some other entity was going to come about. But all these parish schools, as they were back in those early days, they were in decline. They were really in bad shape.
Yeah, they were talking about the recovery school district before the hurricane happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't recovery from the hurricane.
Yeah.
It was recovery from being failing schools.
Yeah.
It
And
existed.
People want to forget that.
Yeah, they morphed it into, people just believed, that's recovery from the hurricane, but it wasn't.
You know,
I just thought that was a little extra because
Yeah.
that's how I felt yesterday. So it was a good feeling.
Well, that's good.
Okay, so y'all, any questions for Angie? How about grants? Anything on grants? Anybody handle grants? Anyone?
TUSA reached out, and I'm going to forward that. Earlier this month, I forwarded an application for grants to the teachers because the smaller grants tend to be teacher specific, and I cannot remember what it was. As soon as I got it, it's like I sent it out to the teachers and it's like, hey, take a look at this, if it's something that would fit. But TUSA also, they reached out they said something about Lafourche teachers, so I don't know if that means teaching in Lafourche or teachers that live in Lafourche. But I will be forwarding that once I get information on those parameters for small micro grants, as they were for classroom projects that they want to be able to fund. But like I said, there was one similar to that I had forwarded about earlier this month, like at the beginning of the month. I don't remember. Do you, Ms. Domingue?
I have been in every email group from 8th grade to 1st grade, so
No.
I'm swamped.
Okay.
And I have been kind of with Mr. Noah, our data guy, and our IT. Some of the big needs we talk about L'Oreal and some of those other local grants. I don't have it complete, but we are definitely working on our wish list and trying to get that paperwork ready really soon as well. So.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll wait to talk about it when I talk about PTA stuff. It's fine.
Okay.
Okay, all right, good, thanks. And Mr. Jake's not here for building and sites, but does anybody have anything to say about the building?
Yes, we
Other than
recently
it's
did
old.
an overhaul of our exterior doors. We had Delta Door Company come in to do that. We were having, with the building shifting the way that it does, it was having a hard time closing. So they came in and did all 3 of the exterior doors. We also had to do some AC work for a few of the rooms at the beginning of the school year. And Mr. Jake is going to come in later on this weekend and work on flooring issues that are popping up again.
Also, it's just my room. It's breaking. Poor thing.
We wish.
It looks
it was
cute.
We don't wish it was your room, but
It
it's
looks
not.
cute.
It's not. So that's where we are on building and sites. Unless you have good news about building.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But so it looks cute?
I mean, the
The
wall
room looks cute. It won't
with
look
air
cute tomorrow. She's got to
conditioner.
move everything out of the way.
Yeah,
Okay.
again.
Oh,
Again.
sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
All right, so let's see. Next up is our ad hoc committee, the update on the max accountability framework. So we talked about it before, but we realized that we were kind of at a standstill because we're going to adjust the framework. We wanted to see the scores. We wanted to see remember we talked about
Yes, ma'am.
that? Like, we didn't know, like, how do you tweak the framework when you don't know what you're tweaking it for, right? So we hadn't really worked on that, but Jason has some information about the scores that he pulled from. So in the past we've I don't know like who asked, but I know it's come up asking Jason to talk about or to show or to gather up data from like max versus like students with dyslexia around the state. That's something I think Dr. Davis had asked about that. So Jason's going to explain a little bit about his teeny tiny, I'm gonna have to take off my
I know, it came up.
teeny tiny print here, but he can tell us about it.
So when you look at the data that's published by the State Department, it's an Excel file that has like thousands of lines of rows. And so what I tried to do was try to extrapolate data for English, math, science, and then all subjects, and as to Max's performance relative to state scores, and then Key Academy, since obviously we share the mission goals with Key, and so that's what's on the sheet there. And again, it kind of came out really small, so I kind of pulled off all of the other data from the other schools and kind of was left with with the state data, Max's, and then the Key Academies. So that's the information that you'll see. And I thought it was a good starting point about looking at the alternative framework and kind of deciding, what kind of changes might need to come about. And so, the columns over to the right-hand side talk about the percentages of the kids who are in each of the categories, namely advanced, mastery for LEAP, basic, approaching basic, and unsatisfactory. So,
Yeah, and so when you look at the, like, of course the total population is everybody, but then students with disabilities, the state doesn't disaggregate dyslexia as a special category. So that's why he chose the other dyslexia
that's
schools.
what's reported. And, in fact, that was something that I think Dr. Davis may have kind of questioned in previous meetings, that, as Karen said, the state doesn't kind of pull that data apart. And so students with disabilities could be those with dyslexia, because that tends to be more high incidence. However, it does include other things like speech impairment, probably health impairments, and other things as well. Pardon me. So it does at least give us a framework, or at least a comparison about, all students that are deemed to have a disabling condition. Yeah. And then, of course, Key Academy has 3 different sites, so I've kind of left all of those, excuse me, intact for comparison. And so, in looking at the data, it looks like, we're kind of looking at a higher percentage of kiddos at max who are falling in approaching basic and unsat versus the higher categories.
But we also have to look at the number of students we have, because when you have a small number of students like max,
One takes a percentage.
yeah,
Right.
1 or 2 students can really
Absolutely.
skew your.
So max really does suffer from, some people call that a restricted range, that we have a smaller number. So, this was just, again, the data that was reported on the state's website. So, it doesn't, I don't remember if it said the in number or the number of kids, that were reported in each.
Yeah, because they're North Shore and Caddo schools are new.
Those
I don't
are
know
new, yeah.
how large they
And
are.
I don't recall necessarily deleting any of the columns. Maybe I did, but I deleted rows, which would be other schools. So I don't remember necessarily taking away those columns, which may have had those other numbers. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Interesting.
So perhaps a starting point for looking at the alternative framework and reporting back to the DOE about some potential changes that that they can consider for future decision making.
Yes, sir.
All right. So anybody
So
have
we-
anything to add to it? I guess now at this point, now that we have our scores, we'll get the committee together and start putting our brains together and see.
And one of the things that we spoke about, I want to say in the last meeting, and Ms. Roderick, you had reported on the number of kids who were moving up a level for max, and those numbers I think seemed more favorable
In one of the tests.
in one, than necessarily.
A test that's not in our computation.
Yeah, and right. So that might be something that we need to look at in terms of maybe reworking the framework and the parameters of that to reflect, student growth that may not be reflected in these particular pieces of data. But Dr. Hill, that's a good point that the numbers coming from max are, 100 kids, thereabout, or probably smaller number because we would exclude the little kids. But some of the other schools, the numbers are probably in the hundreds. So that is a factor.
And that would be one suggestion. I would think that we need to report the data according to the population of the school to reflect the number of students that you have. Because when stuff like this goes out on their website, people look at it, they just look at the percentages based on what the state is saying. They're not looking at the percentages based on the number of students in the school.
Yeah.
So we need to adjust that.
And so I think that will be needed to be pointed out, because as it is now, none of that is, I think, reflected, at least from my perspective, my understanding of the alternative framework.
Well, aren't they also looking at such things as progress? In terms of.
But progress is very narrowly defined on the State Department. So, for example, if a student scored 750 is basic, okay, across the board, across the tests, across the grades. if a student in the 3rd grade scored a 650, progress is taking the 100-point spread and dividing it between 4th and 8th grade and making that growth. That is fine. But if a student is in the 6th grade and makes a 650, the expectation to hit that progress point is 750.
Within 2 years.
Within 1
Instead
year.
of-
From 6th grade
Oh,
test,
yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, 7th grade test
So, yeah.
to that
to
8th
eighth
grade
grade, yeah.
test, that 100 points, otherwise there are no progress. So if, for example, it is a 100-point spread and the student makes from 3rd grade to 4th grade a 25-point increase, they have met that progress score. But if they make a 23-point increase, they do not make that progress score. And by the next grade, if they have not made that 50,
Oh.
So it's compounded.
So it's
because
it's not-
because okay, so like let's say they make a 650 and a 650, because 650 is the lowest you can make. Okay, so if they make a 650 and then the next year we can show growth on all of our things, but it won't register on that LEAP test in the 4th grade. So now I have to make 100 points in 3 years.
So
So
they've
it's not-
taken something pretty simple and made it complicated.
Well, that's the progress score across the state. So if you recall from our last meeting, we have 5 components of this alternate framework. One component is the criteria, mastery or higher, for all of those test takers, both English and math together. The second component is that progress score in ELA, and the third score is the progress score in math. The fourth component is our growth score in Easy CBM for math, and the fifth one is our in-house growth score for Acadians testing that reading ability. Those were added for us as a special mission for dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. Those two, they're in-house. They separated our progress score on the LEAP, but that's the same progress score that goes in the SPS calculation for all of the schools in the area. And then they conflated the ELA and math criteria, which is, do you have mastery or higher, which is to our advantage. So
60% is from that LEAP, as I understand it, that LEAP.
I think it's 80. 20% is the LEAP criteria. 20 is progress LEAP. 20 is progress LEAP.
So,
ELA
so
and
that
math.
60% would be all LEAP related.
Yes,
And only
60% is
40% are only
is our in-house. That is
Sort
correct.
of the things that are more sensitive to individual student growth. That's only it's only counting 40%.
So no matter what system we put in place in-house, 40% is the maximum that we could.
This is because of the requirement that the LDOE for every public school, you can't get rid of the LEAP. Not just taking the LEAP has to be, that is a federal guideline. The LEAP has to be a part of what any public school does, because they want to see that movement. So that is their stance on this.
They thinking about raising the bar too.
So perhaps,
Yes, ma'am.
perhaps what we need to consider and propose is looking at a different way of considering those LEAP scores. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Rodriguez, like right now, that you meet criteria or the criterion, if you meet at least mastery, right? You have to meet mastery to fulfill that criterion. So it doesn't take into account kids that maybe are approaching
Struggling and have
basic,
made basic.
or maybe were unsat and moved to basic. It doesn't take into account that. It's the kids that have met a higher level standard, which the goal is master.
In simple terms, I just think that you do a disservice to a kid. If you take him into fourth grade and you set a baseline when he gets here, and he's reading at the first grade level, and you get him to third grade level by the end of his fourth grade year, he's not going to hit master, but he's made tremendous progress. He has progressed 2 school years in one.
And a lot of our kids do that because the ELA teachers, along with social studies and science, because we teach the nonfiction portion of ELA, we work hard, and the kids work even harder. And for their growth not to be seen, because we have about 86 kids that take the LEAP test total, it's heartbreaking.
So I
Maybe
guess,
we need to come up with something
Yeah.
that is a supplement to what the state does. Not changing what the state
not
does,
changing.
because by law
I
they
think,
have
and I think just to look at it from a different angle,
Yeah.
Correct.
because like kind of with your numbers point a few months ago, Dr. Hill, I think what's happening at Max is that it's being concentrated. Like there's a concentration of how it's kind of affecting Max versus in a more traditional setting, because for a lot of school districts it just comes on the wash. Like that's the numbers. The numbers are larger to begin with, so the kids with disabilities, those are few and far between in the grand scheme of things.
They
so
don't hurt the score
doesn't-
very
it
much.
doesn't-
That's
can't
not
see it.
exactly true because of the subgroup, because you don't have to just be CIR, but UIR. If you don't hit your subgroup criteria, it still hurts those schools, okay? So, because they didn't make it on the subgroups, those demographic
Yeah,
differences.
but how many of our kids are part of that subgroup though? Like, how many of them do we have on IEPs?
About 20%.
So then that's still, like, the other 80% still just filter into regular ed and they go unnoticed.
And they get compared to kids that
Well,
don't
because-
have the disability.
Because those that are on 504 plans are still considered regular. They don't receive special services. They only receive an accommodation.
And then too, I think what probably adds to it is that there are a lot of kids, perhaps here, who are receiving the interventions that, Max is at an intervention school, so they're receiving those interventions that perhaps in
They
a
weren't
traditional
getting.
would maybe be an IEP kid. But here at Max, they're receiving the interventions, and it's not as necessary to categorize them, because they're already receiving services and accommodations.
Or the kids that come without a plan, we have.
There are very few of those, though. They're mostly in the younger grades because most people won't assign a plan to them. We have only a
Is
few.
garbage helping our schools?
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
yes.
Can you really?
Yes, the kids have taken hold of it, and what Miss Maddie's doing started whenever she came here with the little kids, and now they're working their way up to, they're in middle school now, and it's amazing to see what
Correct.
our teachers have done.
It has not helped us to do yet in the short time, but that doesn't mean it is not of value as those kids go up the line. So, because a lot of what CABAS, if you remember when we talked about last month with the new evaluation system, one of the prime indicators between doing a 3, which is supposed to be the really good one, and a 5, all of that along that spectrum, is the agency of the student in the classroom. We talk about engagement, but engagement is not enough in the new evaluation system. It's where the students know enough about the running of the class, they know enough about their own needs and strengths, and they are facilitated in order to take control of that learning. The whole premise between the IAL classroom, that's the accelerated independent learner is that they can accelerate learning once you have those things in place. Because right now, you can teach to 30 kids in a classroom and drone on, but how do you know that the message has made its mark? But because of the things that are going on in the AIL classroom, where students take their own data from as young as first grade, they are taking their own data, not just taking their points to win things, but they get points for saying, oh, I grew. They are, and when you get to middle school and beyond, they are graphing their growth. They're graphing their points, but they're graphing their learning as well, to take control of that, so that it goes beyond engagement and into the realm of agency and lifelong learners, which is the ultimate goal for Dr. Brumley and company, is how do we create lifelong learners, not just rote automatons in a desk. So yes, I think this is going to be a different year. Okay, because we have enough of that groundwork. That first year, it was new to everyone, and it really took off in that first, second, and third grade. It was kind of bumpy beyond that. Okay, second year, we still got a little more traction. Last year, despite what this says, there was a lot more traction in terms of that engagement and agency that goes on in the classroom. That is so crucial.
So how did we do on the CBM math and the easy CBM and the Acadians? Like, do we see a difference there? I know LEAP is, a different animal, but like, did we get our points there for progress, like on our framework?
I have not finished with Dr. Weber. It's the beginning of both their school and our school, so we haven't gotten together to really go over plugging in the progress points, because that was another thing that I have to figure out for this year, the progress points, because that's where most of our points would come from, the 2 progress points as well as the easy CBM and the Acadians. Okay, so I should have that by the next meeting.
Are you asking about last year or this?
Last year's beginning
year,
in our
Acadians
framework,
data.
within our framework.
I'm not ELA or math, so I don't have access to either one of the scores to pull them up. But just by the number of kids they worked to go to Chick-fil-A. I don't know if y'all remember that from a meeting. Okay, the amount of kids that went, I would say there was a lot of growth.
Well, there was growth, but it was 20. Was it 5 points? It was 5 points. It was 5 points. So a lot of people went because we wanted to encourage them. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily the growth target that was met. So that's one of the reasons why we're calculating how that actually looks. Okay, because it's important for them to factor my growth target when they take the test.
And when they see that growth is important,
correct,
they will work harder to grow.
And remember, we're basing a lot of what we have on things that, in the grand scheme of a student, otherwise wouldn't matter. Like, think about it. How many kids care about the LEAP? Especially in that 7th grade year, because ain't nobody keeping you back. Mm-hmm. So keeping them engaged in those areas is important, showing them that there is something else beyond whatever arbitrary pass-fail kind of thing. And even the pass-fail kind of thing, like these kids that we get have often had so many setbacks in that area that, like, it's easier to not care than it is to care about something if you're worried about making the same score each time. So those things are still in place.
Care is extremely, and that's what's going to turn it around.
Correct, and that's where the CABIS would come in. We put in reinforcements for them, even like a time limit, because our kids, they don't like reading because it's hard for them. So we set a goal each test block for, you have to be on your test for this amount of time, and you'll earn a dress down. And so at the end of the day, Miss Rodrigue would go pass out all the people that took their time, scrolled through, reread, and they would want a dress down. And I'm sure it only took 1 or 2 times for a kid to mess up that time limit and realize they didn't get the dress down. And then the next day they were ready. So.
And it wasn't just a time thing. I gave the teachers, the time thing. They gave me the what did it look like? Are they actually using scratch paper? Are they
correct?
Are they?
We put in incentives if we saw you using the tools. They have online tools whenever they're taking the test. They can highlight the passages. They can put sticky notes and annotate and write notes on the side. And if they were doing that, they got other reinforcements that we were offering. So I feel like this year was one of the better years.
Testing. It was one of the better testing years.
And they were excited. They tell you you can't talk about the test, in the rules. And the kids were like, "Did you see? I highlighted." And I was like, "We can't talk about it. And you're not supposed to be talking during the test. Are we all gonna get fired? Let's be quiet." So they were really pumped up and ready to make
correct
the reach their goals.
That's
so.
good.
And we kind of knew, I think, or suspected that it was going to take a while for CABAS to really get a hold, because it was a whole new thing, especially for those kids in the middle and the upper grades.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden they're changing how things were doing. Now that they've come through it in the lower grades, as they get higher and higher, they get more use.
And we're noticing now, because the numbers have shifted in terms of who was used to this. So even though we have new kids coming into 5th grade, new kids coming into 4th grade, we see them falling in because there's that support. They see what everyone else is doing. So they're able to.
The kids are good about teaching, like showing them how to do the things. So it's good to see that they're excited
peer
to teach
teaching
them what
really
they learn.
works.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we still need to have the meeting and figure out what we're gonna do as a backup for the tweaking the plan, the framework. Cause we can say all day long that the kids are growing, but in the end they're gonna judge us on something. We need to make sure that they judge us on something we can be judged against, something we can be successful at. So I'm gonna look at my calendar, and I guess I'll create a Survey Monkey or something and send it out to the people's names, and we'll figure out when the most people can be here, and we'll get that started. All right, so then principal's report. I feel like we just got a big old long report from
I'm
you.
sorry.
So it was good.
Forever
Thank you for all of that.
It's a short one. Come on, admit it. It's a short one from what I'm used to. Okay, professional development is next Tuesday. We're gonna hit that. We did a lot of PD at the beginning of the school year that was focused with the docs. I wanted to keep the days clear for them because they don't get here often from the disparate places from which they come. So I didn't want anything else to interfere. We do have 2 new curricula in the building. So those people are coming in on Tuesday. That would be APEL is coming to work with us on Bayou Bridges, and Ms. Gore is going to be working on the new Amplify ELA that we have. So we have let the guidebooks go because the Amplify ELA aligns with the CKLA that we have from 1st through 5th grade, and she's got such a large amount of data on those kids from those 6th and 7th and 8th graders that she's going to be able to open up what she can do with those resources. So they're coming in, as is Amplify Science, to help Miss O and Miss Domain on differentiating for the students, because that's an important need that we have in the building. Now, statewide monitoring of ESSA consolidated programs for the 22-23 school year, they're going to be on the site September 5th. That's next Thursday. So that's a big federal fundings monitoring that's coming in. Miss Woods from the DOA, if you remember, she is the liaison. She's one of the directors that's over different things, and specifically over Max Charter. And we have the fortunate spirit to live in the same city with her. And so she can hop in, and she emailed me the week before and said, hey, I'm coming in on the 12th. She spent about 2-3 hours here. Looking at Mr. Henry's class, that's the new teacher that we have in social studies, and talking with me about the needs that we have. So we talked about how you guys are getting together and looking at the framework. She thinks that that's not a terrible idea, although it is primarily set up for us. There was a lot of work that went into it to be set up for us. That the one that currently stands. I did mention maybe putting science in, or depending on what scores look like for social studies, maybe putting that in as well. We are working on fundraising, as she had mentioned, fundraising for CABUS incentives and field trips. We do have 2 car washes. Just want to remind you, it is September 7th and 21st, right here, Advanced Auto Parts on St. Patrick's Day. I will be there. There will be goodies. So if you don't want to wash your car, why wouldn't you want to wash your car? Grinding season's coming up. Got to get it nice and shiny so it can get dirty again.
Right. And love bugs. Let's not forget the
Oh,
love
let's
bugs.
not forget love bugs, especially since it's getting darker earlier, and that's where the love bugs and all the other bugs come out, is when you're driving at night. So we will be there, and there will be sweets to be sold as well. So if you don't want to wash your car, you can come and buy some sweets. We had a really good open house, and I forgot to put on my thing that we had 56 parents coming in. I'm sorry, 56 students were represented. We might have had more than that.
That's over half of them.
Yes. So 56 students were represented at the open house. And I put in, I wasn't sure, ma'am, so I put in PTA meeting is scheduled for September 11th. That will be in 2 weeks, I think it is, on a Wednesday. And it is also our give back night at Five Guys.
Yep. And Five Guys does from, it's usually 11 to 9. It's usually like their whole day, so you can take your girlfriend for lunch and your husband or your wife for supper.
Don't give Mr. Howell any ideas.
Oh, that's funny.
Who do I take to breakfast?
Well,
They're not open.
and of course you have to mention Max.
Yeah, you do have to mention Max, but they've been kind.
September 11th.
The Wednesday.
So my apologies. I'm just now seeing that you put rosters, teacher rosters in the. I didn't know what that meant.
Teachers and what they teach in grade and all, but I know I can go to the Max deal.
Yes, ma'am. It is actually updated. Mr. Noah has spent all of last week on updating the website to make
A lot
sure
of
we have
times
that.
I'll go, but it's
Yes, ma'am.
not updated.
Well, he was able to get in on that this week. Like I said, we only have 2 new teachers this year. Miss Jessica Melton in the special ed. She does special ed for 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And Mr. Ramon Henry, who is doing 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Last time, so I knew about
Yes. So updates on CABUS. Dr. G continues to come in weekly. He was actually here today. I always expect him on Tuesday, and then he's been popping in on these odd days, and I'm always like, who is that guy down the hall in the school? And it's him. Dr. Weber and Dr. Shanman continue to do video conferences. In fact, I just talked to Dr. Shanman. Next week, they're going to start that. It's usually at the end of the week on a Thursday or a Friday that they meet by either cluster or by content, so that they are giving guidance as we go through the data that the teachers are collecting in their classes. And of course, for transportation, we still have no other applicant. I'm gonna stay there.
No way. All right. It's too bad. So tell me again when the open house is. I didn't.
Open house
wasn't
was
No.
on now I can't even remember what
Was.
date. It was the 14th of August. It was a Wednesday. Yes.
And you had a good turnout.
We had an awesome turnout with
Excellent.
56 students. I think it might have been more because we got so many twins and they just put them in one line. So it might have been a little bit more.
That's good.
You had a packed house.
Awesome.
Yes, we did.
They didn't fit in the
They did not
cafeteria.
fit. They didn't fit in the cafeteria. They didn't fit in here. They didn't fit in the big rooms.
Good thing.
Well, that's one way. Yes, that's a good thing. It'd be nice if we had a place
If we had
that
the
fit.
space.
Might be why my floor is collapsing.
Maybe so too many people, huh? Alrighty. Any questions for Ms. Rodrick? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And how about the PTA report now?
So, like Ms. Rodriguez said, our first meeting will be on September 11th, where we're going to open up nominations for board members, because right now it's me. Also, our first give back night, September 11th. We're also doing another one in October at Five Guys. So far, including myself, I've only had, including me, it's only 9 people that returned forms so far and money for PTA. So if we can maybe send out a push
Yes, ma'am.
and attach the form electronically
Yes,
on the
ma'am.
email, asking them to either turn it in and turn in the money, or fill it out and bring it with their money when they come to the meeting on the 11th before they go get Five Guys. And then when we were talking about grants, so this year's my first year. I'm a provisional member for Pt2 Service League. And we did have a meeting last night, and we do offer some grants to nonprofits. So I think they said that is gonna open up next week, maybe on September the 5th. So when that information comes out, I'm gonna look and see. I may be able to apply for something under the PTA, because we do have a 501 or 503C, 501C, whatever it is. We are a nonprofit for the PTA. So I'm gonna look to see what the criteria is, and see if maybe we can't apply for a grant through Pt2 Service League that might be able to give us some money to go towards something. Like I said, I don't know what their criteria is, so, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you. So hopefully we'll get some more of all those parents who came for the open house, right? Alrighty, well, thank you so much. Any new business? No new business to be discussed. All right, so the announcements, our next board meeting is Thursday, September 26th. Next PTA meeting is going to be announced
September 11th.
September 11th, right? And then the Charter School Conference, Thursday, December 12th at the Sheraton Hotel in New Orleans. You going to that, Dr. Allen?
Yeah, the good thing about being a part of the CBLA is that if we go to all 4 sessions, we can go to the conference free.
For free, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so
You always go to, can always depend on it.
So yeah, when I did that, I got a little glass plaque at the end, like an Academy Award. So
Carolyn Romer said she was gonna give me one last year, but she forgot. I think I made her angry the year before, but that's okay.
All right.
You're kind of forgettable.
And y'all don't forget to do your ethics training. Yeah, and so there's.
Because I forgot it last year.
Well, they came back on me from 2022. I got this letter. I think I told y'all about that, But we moved this year, so it kept going back to them. So they sent it to the sheriff's office. And the deputy sheriff brought it to my house.
So what did you have to do?
I had to go back and do
Take off
the
the handcuffs.
The training itself.
no, it was the financial
Oh.
statement from
Oh, yeah, they tackle
2022.
you.
Oh.
I hadn't filled out properly. I used the wrong form.
Oh,
We're supposed to use tier 3, I believe.
Yeah.
And I might have used tier 4.
Jason messed up too.
I got a letter with a green thing on it too.
You did too?
Yeah, I did.
He filled his out wrong, but he did it.
I did it within 7 days to avoid $500 in fines.
So mine was from 2022, so I just begged them for forgiveness, and they never said anything else. So I
That's
guess they
good.
forgave me. Maybe they'll come back.
Gee, the cop comes.
Alrighty. So y'all, anything else?
I just want to invite any of the board members who would like to come to the PTA meeting on September 11th. Please come. I'm sure parents would love to hear and see you.
We need to be members.
What time?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Yeah, unfortunately, I still have evening classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And Tuesday's the only day I'm free. But then the third Tuesday, the hospital board meets. So
when are you retired?
5 years ago, I said, so Karen, if we do have a meeting,
Not on Tuesday?
no, Tuesday would be the optimum except for the third Tuesday.
Okay. All right. Morning, afternoon, evening?
No, the third Tuesday, I have a
Thanks,
hospital
Renee.
appointment, but
The other
any other
Tuesdays.
Tuesday, all
All
day. I'm
day.
free,
All right. Okay. Do I hear any motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, Dr. Hill moved that we adjourn. Anybody, and Jason second? All in favor? All right,
we
so
only
we're
had two
shutting this
motions
down
to
at, what
start.
time is it?
4:32.
4:32.